At 94, there was a morning I stood in my kitchen and couldn't start cooking. That had never happened before. I had the pan in my hand, stove right in front of me. Same kitchen I've used for decades. And I just put the pan back. I poured myself a cup of coffee. Instead, my hand shook a little. Not enough to spill it, but enough for me to notice. I stood there for a minute, staring at nothing, then grabbed 2 cookies off the counter and called that breakfast. That was new. I've been cooking my own meals my whole life. Through raising kids, working full-time, taking care of a husband who thought grilling meant burning things on purpose, I always had something going on the stove in the morning. Even after my husband passed, I kept that part of my day until I didn't. That morning stayed with me, not because anything terrible happened, but because nothing happened, and that was the problem. I leaned on the counter a little longer than I needed to and looked at that empty pan like it had something to say. It wasn't always like this. I grew up in a house where breakfast wasn't a question. It was whatever my mother put on the table. Most mornings that meant beans, rice, and cornbread. Nothing fancy, nothing you'd brag about. Just hot food that filled you up and got you out the door. And I hated it. I used to watch other kids eat toast with butter or those colorful cereals and think that's what normal people eat. That's what I'm going to eat when I grow up. And I did. Once I got my office job, I switched everything. Toast in the morning, coffee every day, cereal when I didn't feel like cooking. Later on, it was frozen breakfast sandwiches, something I could heat up in a couple of minutes before work. It felt efficient. It felt modern. It felt like I had moved up in the world. My mother used to say, "Hot food in the morning keeps you steady." I used to roll my eyes and grab my coffee. For a long time, I thought I was right. Even after I retired, I kept eating that way. Toast, cereal, coffee. But after my husband passed, that pattern got worse. When there's no one else in the house, there's no reason to keep a schedule. No one asking what's for dinner. Meals turn into something you handle on the side. There was a stretch of time when mornings started feeling off. Not dramatic, just a quiet kind of wrong. I'd wake up already tired, eat something quick, toast, cereal, whatever was easy, and still feel like I hadn't really eaten. By 10 o'clock, I'd be back in the kitchen looking for something else. Crackers, cookies, anything. It didn't feel like hunger as much as it felt like I couldn't settle. Some days I'd eat standing over the sink. Some days I'd sit in front of the TV with a bowl of cereal and not even remember finishing it. One week, I remember taking out the trash and realizing I had thrown away more food than I had actually eaten. That didn't sit right with me. Still, I kept going like that longer than I should have. Then came that morning, the one with the pan. I stood there thinking, if this is how my mornings feel now, what's it going to feel like in a year? Because it wasn't just that I felt tired. It was that I didn't feel steady anymore. I opened the fridge and saw a container of rice. It had been sitting there at least a day, maybe two. Cold, plain, nothing special. Right next to it was a can of black beans I had opened earlier in the week. I took the rice out, scooped some into a pan, added a little of the beans, rinsed them first, chopped half an onion, 1 clove of garlic, turned the stove on. It wasn't some big decision. It just felt like the smallest step I could take that wasn't what I had been doing. The first time, it wasn't even that good. The rice stuck a little, but I started noticing how I felt on the mornings I did cook. Not dramatically better, just more settled. So I tried something different. On a Sunday, I cooked a small pot of rice. Nothing fancy, just enough for a few days. Put it in the fridge. Told myself you don't have to think about it now. It's already there. That helped more than I expected, because in the morning the hardest part wasn't cooking. It was deciding to start. When the rice was already done, all I had to do was heat a pan. These days I wake up around 6. Most mornings now I walk straight into the kitchen, turn on the light, and make the same thing. Leftover rice from the night before, half a can of black beans, a little chopped onion, a clove of garlic. I heat it in a pan, let it sit just long enough to get a little crisp on the edges, then put it on a plate with a piece of cornbread or whatever cheap bread I picked up at Kroger that week. That's it. A can of black beans is about 89 cents where I live. I use half. The rice is already in my fridge. It's a $1 breakfast, give or take a few cents. And at my age, it's the one breakfast my body still trusts. After a couple of weeks, the mornings started to feel different. I wasn't walking back into the kitchen at 10 o'clock, looking for something to fill a gap. That's when my daughter said something. She had called me one morning and said, "You sound different in the mornings now." I wasn't rushing through the conversation. I wasn't trying to get off the phone so I could go lie down. I was just there. For years, I thought I needed better food, healthier labels, more variety. What I actually needed was fewer decisions. Your body stops tolerating randomness as you get older. I didn't need a better breakfast. I needed one breakfast I didn't have to think about. Something I could make half asleep. Something that didn't depend on whether I felt motivated that morning. If I could go back to my 60s or even my early 70s, that's the first thing I would change. Stop making every morning a choice. If the easy option is already cooked rice in the fridge, you'll use that. I rinsed the beans and realized I wasn't chasing anything anymore. At 94, That's a strange kind of relief. If I ever make it to 100, it won't be because of beans or rice. It'll be because I stopped living in a way that made every day harder than it needed to be. It's repetition. It's keeping a few habits steady so the rest of your day doesn't fall apart. That's senior wisdom, whether people want to call it that or not. Don't build your days around what you feel like doing. Build them around something you can repeat. That's what keeps you steady. That's what keeps you from slipping. And if you're the kind of person who finds something useful in stories like this, real ones, not polished ones, this is what old people share has always been about. Passing along grandparent advice, life lessons, and a little bit of hard-earned wisdom that doesn't look impressive but works when nothing else does.